Let me see if this will load. Is it still not working, Canvas?
Yeah.
No, yeah, it wasn't. It says it right here. It just says right on the homepage that there's an outage, but it doesn't say how long. Let's see. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, that's what I got. Message.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have any better access, right? Let's see. Okay. Good morning. How is everyone? Yeah. Hanging in there. So it's October 20th. I can't believe, like, in a way it feels like Halloween should have happened like a long time ago. Like, I don't know, maybe because we decorated for Halloween in like August. I feel like it's been coming for a long time. And then at the same time, I'm like, it's coming so soon. It's next Friday, right? A week from Friday. It's coming. It's on a Friday this year, which is like kind of exciting. My kids have the day off. Like we can carve pumpkins and do all sorts of crazy things on the day, which is kind of exciting. I can eat candy all day, right? Maybe I shouldn't have put that up, then maybe not the most appropriate thing to talk about, but that's okay. I'm still planning on eating candy all day that day. I'm looking forward to it. But I wrote two things up there and I was going to show you on Canvas, but there seems to be a system-wide outage. I don't know how long Canvas will be out. Hopefully it's just back up sometime today. If it's not up soon, we can troubleshoot that, but I would hope that they have it back sometime later today. They haven't told us anything other than it's out. So I wanted to remind you that the outline and source is due on Wednesday. Okay, so it was originally due today. And when Canvas comes back up, you're welcome to turn it in whenever, but it's due on Wednesday. We're at 40 points. We've been talking about it, but just to make sure it's on your mind. And then a week from today, we do have our second exam. Okay, so we have today and Wednesday, we'll finish. I have a little case study that we're going to do to wrap this up. And then we'll move on to substance disorders. And then our second exam is on Monday. So that one, remember, we don't have an in-person class. You take it online. You can do it anytime before 11:59 p.m., but you have this class time to do it if you want, or you can sleep in and take it later. It's totally up to you. Hopefully, again, Canvas will be up later today. If it's not, we'll deal with it. We'll troubleshoot. But are there any questions about either of those, about the paper? Anything still confused about, or anything related to the outline and source, or anything about the exam for now? I'll remind you again about that on Wednesday. Yeah. They don't need to be in any format yet. Okay, so for the final paper, I'm gonna have you try to put your one source and your show in APA format, but you don't need to do it yet. If you want to, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. So I just want to make sure you have all the information there. So like if you use the DSM, make sure you have the full citation, even if it's wrong. Just make sure it's all there. Okay? So make sure you have an academic source. Again, that's worth 10 points. It's the first thing I'm going to do is check that you have your academic source and like your show information. That's the first thing I'll do when I open it. So just make sure both of those are on there so you don't lose those points, or kind of 10 easy points to have. And then the other 30 points is just progress toward the paper. Okay. And then as far as the exam goes, the study guide is on Canvas. None of the exams in here are cumulative, so it's just on everything in this unit. Okay, so make sure that when it does come up and you can look at it, it'll be on chapter 6, 8, 7, 9, and 10. Okay, so everything since the last test. And hopefully that again pops up soon and I can maybe go over it with you on Wednesday. Okay. Yeah. So everything since the last one. So we covered chapter 8, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Yeah. Anything else about the paper for now? Anything at all? Do you have any questions about it?
I don't know, haven't even started it. So I know.
Okay, all right. Well, just reminding that it's due on Wednesday. Okay. All right, so we made it all the way through eating disorders, but I have a case study that I want to do just to kind of pull it together and wrap it up, and then we'll move on. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hand this out, and I'd love for you to work on it with like a couple of people. So you can each have your own copy to read and mark up as we go. But what I want you to do is when you're done, find a couple of people around you, and you can turn one of these in together. So you put all your names on one and turn it in. But this is somebody's story about struggling with an eating disorder. And then on the back, you'll look for like signs and symptoms, causes, treatments, right? Kind of everything that we've talked about. So I'm gonna hand this out, and then again, like when you're done reading it, maybe find a couple of people and work on it together. And then we'll talk about it on the left. I know it's right there. I brought it, but I'm trying not to use it. It makes me nervous.
It's supposed to happen.
Yes.
I got two.
There's one behind you, but that's.
I'm so sorry. I was gonna make the order.
Okay. I'm always afraid it's like gonna give out on me, so I have it there. It's like my emotional support. What's that? Yeah, feel free to mark it as you go through.
I don't know about making money all the time. Sorry, this is my. A little cleaning, so it was upsetting. It's stuck there. I mean, that's. It's like, it's a lady card, it's very. I love it. Okay. This is really, so I personally found it. Young ladies, fellow ladies, fathers, and professionals. Wow, I would start with questions.
So again, when you're done, find a couple of people around you. You can turn in one sheet together if you want to write your answers on one together. Yeah.
Medium, please. Because my brain's a sim. It happens when you're 60.
Okay, so.
I think it just happens. But yeah,
That's
okay.
correct. Okay, I've already had dysfunction. That means that they're not functioning in society well.
Right, or like
Okay.
able to do the things like you would normally, like not able to function, right? So you're not doing the things that you.
I just wanted to make sure that
Mhm.
it's functioning. I should have been a doctor. I write very small, my problem. Well, I know, that's what I'm like, do bigger.
Big for me. My handwriting is tiny.
Mine's extra sloppy because I can't spell for B's. I can do math better than just about anybody, but spelling, not so much.
No, it's a.
So I make it sloppy and I'm like, oh no, I meant it
Yeah.
C instead of a D.
Strategic, I like it.
Exactly. Very sad. So this one, some signs, I'm just. Five things. So the first one is. Deviance. Different from societies. Oh, no, she was being people, she was doing some really deviant against the humans. Much better than people.
I think too about the symptoms of eating, right, recognize like horrible things, like think about the, like what are some of the symptoms of the disorders that might indicate that she has. I mean, either way.
Okay, so what would show that she had the 5 Ds?
Yeah, or, so the these are more like a general, like, global about, like, she clearly has, like, an eating struggle. But what symptoms, like, that we'll talk about, with, like, are you seeing this, if that helps, you could go with the heat, like, as well, but.
Can we pull up the anorexic spot? Nice. This is also, we're gonna start to look here. Okay, so, heart problems. Or the volume is what. Like it's. So. What are some? Okay. So those are some.
It looks like a lot of you are like, you threw it at me yourself. Halfway through, I'll give you maybe, take like maybe 3 to 5 more minutes or so. It's like a lot of you are getting
So.
close. There's all the epic stickers.
Yeah. What else? Got the OCD. I don't know if it's fall under the catch all. See it. Cool. Oh, grade us. Yay, us. All right, what's everybody dressing up as? A 6, 7. That's awesome.
I have 26 preteen soccer players and we have practice for them before. So, yeah, we thought that over.
Now, are you gonna do like the thing 1 and thing 2 kind of version of it, except thing 6 and thing 7?
So we got
Or are you just
soccer
gonna go,
like soccer,
solid.
soccer outfits, so I have the 6 and 6. That I bought headbands and I sewed 6 and 7 on the.
I like this kind of stuff.
I know, I'm ready.
I'm all about pithy.
They're gonna roll their eyes, I'm ready. I have a full back.
Doing exercise with the weights
Dude,
on it.
you're gonna totally get the cool factor.
Probably.
You're gonna get the-
I don't think I'm very cool, but
That's like, no matter what you do, you never get it right.
No. My kids are doing good. Oh.
So. My youth was in stuff. I went to a really good school, but I was more interested in drinking before. So. And I was in a sorority, so, I know all my great clubs, which is really panned out because we use them in statistics. Which
Yep.
Making all the
There you
kids
go.
have to learn them, and I know,
There you go.
the reputation's full. But anyhow, so my son, contacts me. It's easy. Texted me, he got a couple of big things, and he said, well, what do you think, Mom? The only reason, the only reason he's ever texted me, like, it's because it turns out it's such a sorority at the school. So I was like, so I finally got some street cred.
There you go.
So however many years later, it's like, I don't even remember being in, because I was, but anyhow.
Does anybody need more time? Looks like most people are pretty close. Okay, so let's talk about it together and then I'll collect it from you. So what are some of the signs? Like somebody give me one. What's one of the signs that she has an eating disorder? She's clearly struggling, right? But what are some of the things that like you wrote down that she's struggling with? Yeah. Yeah, right. So she's ignored eating so much that she's not even like detecting feeling hungry anymore. Yeah.
Working out, but then like hiding that she's working out.
Yeah, right. So all of the like excessive working out and then doing it like in secret, right? Like hiding in the bathroom to do sit-ups and doing it like and not telling anyone. What else? Anything else you want to know? Yeah. Yeah, right. The obsession with the number, right? Nothing wrong with wanting to be below a certain number, being aware of your weight. That's not a problem, but the like huge obsession with it and the awareness of it, right?
And like pant size, never should.
Yeah. Right, right, and so you see that like very like fixated obsession on the numbers and that, again, that overlap with the OCD, right, like we were talking about last night, yeah.
The fat.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mhm. Right, right, so very restricted eating, only eating certain things, right, anything else that you wrote down? Anything else we could add? I was thinking too, like, and then she had a big meal, and so she forced herself to throw it up, right? And so you're kind of seeing a little bit of both, right? And like that happens, we talked about, like, she mostly fits anorexia with the restricted eating, the obsession with like losing weight, being very underweight, but then the occasional like purging kind of is not one of the elements of this. And that's where we get that eating disorder, like not otherwise specified or kind of showing a little bit of both. Anyone have anything else there? Yeah.
I thought it was interesting about her like perception of one, how much fat she ate, like during Christmas dinner, she
Yeah.
felt she ate too much fat, which caused her to like make herself throw up.
Yeah.
But like if you maybe like she ate like a not healthy amount of fat or whatever,
Mm.
body needed at the time. I think a lot of it was like her perception seemed to be within that very beginning of the case study where she talks about being in school, being tormented by kids. It seems like she never stopped operating out of that space.
Yeah.
So even when her parents started to kind of push back on, her wanting to lose weight, wanting her to get like her wanting to get healthy, I think she must have felt that same and gone back into that same thing. She felt like her parents were the kids in that scenario.
Sure.
Her kids, like she never could go anywhere, like school, to going home, to being constantly tormented about losing weight or being too heavy. So I feel like there's almost like a sense of like vulnerability. She just operates within a constant state of being vulnerable.
Sure.
And her desensitizing herself from things that are physical, like us needing to eat. I think a lot of times I'll get hungry, and then the more times I feel like, oh, I haven't eaten like maybe since yesterday or something like that, I'll start to realize, the other things that I haven't been feeling, that was wrong with me. So I think that there's a lot of that going on where she's kind of desensitizing the physical senses, so she doesn't have to think about her emotional senses.
Yeah, right, and that's something that a lot of people will do, right, especially the longer it goes on, and, I love that you brought up too, like, who knows what she actually had for that dinner, right? It
Yeah.
could have been like a healthy or like
Yeah,
typical.
what I thought was really interesting was like also towards the end was like, she's afraid that it doesn't scare her, which I thought was really interesting. She's afraid over the lack of fear that she feels
Sure,
towards going down that road again. And I think that's really interesting because a lot of people don't have that self-awareness to realize that they aren't afraid.
yeah, and the self-awareness is good, or that's gonna help her with her,
Yeah.
like, treatment journey, hopefully, right? But yeah, like, it's interesting that she's aware of that. Right? And again, a lot of people
Getting
don't
used to
get that.
not eating, that was the biggest.
Yeah.
I think, like, okay, I think like the getting used to not eating,
Mhm.
I think is like a big sign of when I kind of like started to piece together that she was desensitized on her kind of like physical senses to how to feel or why she wanted to get things in the first place.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, right, that she has
Yeah.
an eating disorder, that she's struggling with food. It's not always that obvious, right? For a lot of people, it's very like subtle. And then maybe it's on the line, right? Like for a lot of people, it could be, that you are kind of obsessed with a number, or you're kind of obsessed with the size, but it's not all the way, you're not being this restrictive. There's a lot of like gray area with this. This one's pretty like, feel like it's pretty black and white, but there are a lot of like people who are kind of in the middle. What are some things that influenced her? Would you put for number 3? Anyone have something for number 3 that influenced her developing an eating disorder? Yeah.
Me?
Oh, you had your, right, you do have that. Yeah.
Those are like
All of you. There you go.
So mostly the teasing from the kids.
Yeah.
How originally started, and then she also got it from her counselor,
Right.
which I think just solidified it out,
Yeah.
and it seemed pretty dramatic, so.
It's bad enough when you do here, because then when you have it with someone like in a counseling home like that, but that's only gonna make it worse. Yeah, good hearing those two, crazy.
I don't think her parents influence, like, so acknowledge that there was maybe some more of an issue than her just losing weight. Cause they also agreed she should lose weight, but then when they saw getting too excessive, they kind of like stopped it everything without saying, like checking in with her.
Okay,
So it kind of continued to enable like the patterns of hiding stuff behind her.
yeah,
Her parents also that.
didn't help, right, in a sense, right, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on that, because of the fact that they didn't really check in, like, they didn't really parent her. In a sense, like, they didn't, based off of this case study, I didn't really get a lot of like an emotional connection towards from like the person who was like, this is her story and her parents, like, I didn't really, doesn't really seem like there's a lot of emotional connection there, and part of the reason I think why is like, they were operating from a sense of judgment. They saw her losing weight after they wanted her to lose weight, but
Yeah.
it didn't, it went past what the image that they wanted of her for them,
Right,
that it started getting uncomfortable for them. And I think at that point, if I was a parent and I started to notice that drastic of a change, I realized that there's something else going. There was no inclination of how's school going, how the experience with the counselor goes, how's these camps that you're going. There's no like inkling of them wanting to actually care about her. And I think the fact that she understands the why and why she wants to get skinnier and why she wants to get thinner, and her parents don't understand it. I think from that aspect, it also comes from a place of judgment. She comes back from this camp where like the counselor just made an example of it, and she gets home and her parents are like not happy with how much weight she's got. So I think it's like this constant feeling vulnerable and just getting beat up from every single situation.
okay, yeah,
Okay, I'm a parent and I'm sure this is gonna sound offensive, but.
at least you prefaced it. Yeah, you're right.
So this story
Uh-huh.
is my story from a 16-year-old. So she's saying, and my parents don't understand, and my parents didn't care about my grades, and my parents and my parents and my fucking parents, right? You know, and the parents care, like they care so much.
At least you hope.
And, right? We birthed you, we love you, we're stuck with you, you know, we want you to do well and move on in the world, right?
Mhm.
In a healthy way. Wasn't because we don't want you to come back, no. But we want you to be healthy. So this is a 16-year-old's perception of, and nobody loved me and nobody cared about me and they only cared, she only cared about her weight.
Mhm.
You know, I'm sure parents cared about a lot of things. Now I'm done.
And you hope, right? You hope that the, like, most, I would say most parents, right? Not all, but most are going to like care. And like most teenagers are very, in their own world, right? It's like by definition of that age, the cognitive fallacies that come with that age, everything is like you're here, right? And so it could be a bad combination. There's a couple of thoughts here. I'll go here and then here, yeah. Go ahead.
Just adding on to that though too, it's like very interesting because I know like when I was a little bit younger, me and my mom were not speaking the same language.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
So it's like even if, you know, I were to develop an eating disorder, just because I have it doesn't mean that she would be able to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Or we'd be like, oh, she's fair enough. It's like, no, she does. She's really watching me right now, but she knows what's behind it.
The disconnect there.
Yeah,
right?
there's a crazy disconnect. They're your parents, but you guys are also very different, you know,
Yeah,
age spectrums now. Like,
perspectives and, oh
you
yeah,
know, just very different. So it's
true. Good point. Yeah.
I was gonna add on to her isolating herself, because she mentioned she had a boyfriend, and it seemed like he was trying to help, and then like 2 sentences later, he said she's help.
Yeah, and again, another, so you can have people everywhere around you and feel all alone, right? And like, I think that's the tricky part about case studies, right? Like, you're like, oh, I need more details, right? Like, I need to interview the mom and find out, right? Or interview the boyfriend, is there a boyfriend? Like, do you know? I mean, and so, yeah, I mean, it could be that she felt completely alone, despite having parents, despite having a boyfriend, or not, right? Like, it's a little tricky, right? So I love that you're thinking it through on like such a level though, right? Like, I think it's really important there is often a huge disconnect between, you know, teenagers and their parents, like we're kind of talking about here. But you hope that the parents are involved. That's not always the case. Sometimes the parents are the culprits, right? Like, because they have some schema in their head of what it should be, right? Or it could be that it's completely from, you know, the child or an interaction of the two. It's hard to say. There's one really good example of conditioning in here. Did anyone pick up on like a reinforcement example, like a positive reinforcement where she was rewarded? Yeah. Yeah, right. And so that's another big piece of this is right. Like when she went into the store, it was like, oh my gosh, the clothes fit and I can find the clothes I want and I'm shopping and it's positive. Like being rewarded for those things can be a big one too, right? It's only reinforcing behavior. And then obviously culture. There's a lot of little things like that's what the models wear. That's what like I see in the media. Kind of all the things that we're talking about. And they do some treatments for her, but what are some things that we could like consider, like what are some of the things they did do or we could do for treatment, like we talked about? Anyone have anything to remember before? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so some counseling, some medication, right? And again, that correlation with OCD, like we talked about last time, kind of very commonly overlapping. Right? Anything else that you wrote down for that one? Yeah.
I think she has like pretty severe COVID.
Yeah.
Like monitor for eating,
Mhm.
she's not going to very high,
Right?
so.
Kind of really get it under control, right? Yeah.
I think treating the OCD as the primary might benefit her eating disorder or like recovery disorder or like better than taking medications that specifically target ignorance.
Yeah.
I think particularly because with her hiding her excessive exercise, the fact that she was excessively exercising already shows that she had OCD. I think the fact that she was hiding it and that she meticulously thinks and is already ahead in her thought process for a lot of this, and I felt like, she kind of like she's constantly thinking ahead as well as when brought through the story.
Sure.
And I think part of that also has to do with OCD, just trying to fit everything together that's happening. And I think the less that there is that anxiety of her feeling that she's constantly doing something wrong.
Uh-huh.
Like, I feel like there's no one telling her that she's doing something wrong, but she feels like she's constantly.
Okay.
And I
So
know
that's
like
pretty
people that have OCD that do feel like that, we feel like part of that. Eliminating that feeling was probably might help her eat more.
Sure, so looking at those thoughts and kind of
Looking
putting
at
that
those
to,
thoughts exactly,
Mhm.
opposed to just like take medications with that you aren't eating
sure,
instead of then focus on the OCD so it doesn't happen again, but she just happens to do well off of the ambulance and medication, and then the OCD get worse over time.
right, yeah, like, so treating some of those underlying things,
Yeah.
looking at the thoughts, right, counseling, medication, right, kind of all of those things together. The tricky thing with eating disorders, as we talked about last time, a lot of relapse, right, so it's a lot of like teaching distress tolerance skills when these little things come up in your life, how can you like bring it back in? And that's the case with a lot of mental disorders, right, like teaching distress tolerance, so I have like a list of things to default to when things get hard, right, like I'm struggling today, so here, let me work my way through that list of like those skills that I've learned and like try and bring it back in. One last thought before.
Yeah, so I really liked like even though that there's a lot of things that have like a high rate of relapse, I think one thing that would benefit a lot of people in a lot of different situations is learning how to accept the moments that you have.
Sure.
I think there's a lack of self-acceptance and a lack of, finding yourself in the same situation again. And I think the moments that you're more insecure in those moments and you're beating yourself up over the situation that you already found yourself, you're adding insult to injury. It's
Yeah.
not, you beating yourself up over it isn't going to change the fact that you found yourself in the same situation. So I think, if she saw a counselor again and kind of focus more on, how to handle emotionally when she does relapse, if she does relapse. How do I assess myself in that situation?
Yeah,
And the more that she practices in that situation before things actually happen, I feel like she'll be much better.
it's really interesting, as you were saying that, I don't know if any of you have heard of IFS before, it's like it's been around a long time, it's gaining a lot of like popularity in the last like 5 years. Internal family systems therapy, it's all about parts, right, like that each one of us has a bunch of parts within, it's like a part that feels one way.
IFS.
IFS. internal family systems, right? And so the idea is that we have an internal family of parts within us. Each one of us have different parts that might feel different ways, right? So maybe you had a part of you that this morning was like, I don't want to go to school, it's early, I'm tired. A part of you, right? Right, it's Monday, right? That's tough. Or you had a part of you that was like, I need to go. You have a part of you that's beating yourself up and mad at yourself, and another part that's like trying to move forward. And so the whole essence of this is you can't fight apart. The more you fight apart, the more it comes forward, right? And so as you were saying that, I kept thinking of IFS, right? You have to allow that part to really like express itself, then you have to validate the part, and then you can like try and move forward, right? But interesting, like kind of allowing the, I won't say mistakes, but like the setbacks, right? Allowing them, accepting them, understanding them, so that you can. All right, if you want to make
example of that, will you give us an example of,
How do you mean?
like, what would be an example of accepting? Like,
Sure,
like creative writing.
yeah, so, okay, so let's say she has an episode where like the Christmas dinner, right?
Right.
So she eats too much and she causes herself to throw up. So fighting it would mean that you shame yourself. What's wrong with you? I can't believe you did that again, right? Like, you're damaged, right? The thoughts that would kind of cascade very negatively. Accepting it would be like, okay, like that might not have been the healthiest behavior, but I understand why you did, right? Like to yourself, right? I understand that like you ate too much and you felt like you didn't like that, and so you were trying to fix it and get rid of it. Like instead of shaming, it's more like validating, right? And so it can feel a little like contrived, right? In a way, like I think that's one criticism of parts work is it can feel that way. But it would be like, okay, I understand that you threw up. Maybe that wasn't the healthiest behavior. Maybe we can find a better way next time. But for now, like we've done it, it's over. Let's try and move forward, right? Like instead of like, what's wrong with you? You're disgusting. You always do this, right? Like berating. It's more like let's validate and understand and accept because it's done.
Make better choices.
Yeah, and hopefully next time we can make a better decision.
So I guess that's great, thank you. I was thinking specifically about the IFS.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
So is it in family therapy? How would that manifest?
Yeah, so it's not, it's an internal family.
Oh,
So internal family system. So within your mind, you have a part that wants to purge and views it as disgusting and bad and overweight. You have a part of you that, like, I'm trying to relate it to her here, who maybe like is trying to move forward and be healthy, right? And then you have like, so you have all these parts inside of you that feel different ways. And so identifying the internal family of parts and then trying to validate instead of shaming. The thought is the more you fight the part, the harder it digs its feet in.
so the part is equated to family.
Yeah,
Family members.
right, like you
Okay,
have
so
a
there.
group within you of different parts.
I had missed that.
No,
Now I'm
okay.
on the page.
Internal family.
Got it.
All right, if you want to make sure your first and last name are on those, go ahead and hand them up. I'll come grab them and then we'll move on.
That I said is like, but.
All right.
So.
I feel so weird without my crutch. And like I just keep looking at it. Like this weekend it was awful. We were at our soccer game and it was windy. And I was standing there and this bench like blew over, hit me in the kneecap. Like right in my like surgically like done kneecap. And I literally like I was standing like this and I literally just like a tree on the ground. It was so embarrassing. And then I just laid there on the ground like crying. I was like, wow, this is like the worst moment of my adult life right here. Speaking of internal family, I had one that was like, that's it, I'm done, I'm quitting. I never got to show my face ever again to these people. Like, and only 2 parents saw it, like thankfully. But they yesterday at soccer pictures were like, so are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm mortally wounded. I'm so embarrassed I thought about quitting. They're like, well, I'm glad you didn't. But anyway, so now that I'm walking around, I'm like checking for benches everywhere. Hold on to my emotional support crutch. But all right, anyway, chapter 10. So one more chapter in this unit, and you'll see so many similarities with this chapter. And the last one, I have another case study example of this maybe for next class, depending on time. But with this one, we're looking at drug disorders, so substance-related disorders. And there really are only two. There's one big one, and then there's one like smaller one that we'll talk about as well. So the focus of our class is not on the actual drugs. If you're interested in how substances affect you, we do have a great like class on that where you can take it. Oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name of it. Like anyone taking it with Veronique, Dr. B or Dr. V, she teaches it. Oh my gosh, why am I like just completely left my mind?
Psychopaths.
It's like the psychopharmacology
Yeah.
class that we have, right? Yeah, I'm like, my mind just, it blanked on me.
Is that the name of it?
No, it has, I'll look it up. I'll look it up, but that's what it's about, right? How all these different substances affect your brain on a chemical level. That's not what we'll go into. I'll mention like the categories, but that's not the focus. For us, it's the mental illness that comes out of substance use. So what we're looking at here are the use of psychoactive drugs. Any substance that changes your mood and perception. And this is everything. This is everything from the coffee and caffeine that are on a lot of our desks right now to, like cough syrup, to marijuana, to heroin, right? This is just so many different substances. It's ridiculous, right? It's anything that's going to alter your mood and perception. This can be legal to illegal, prescribed to purchased. I mean, it's just everything. It's so many substances. And the wild thing is like, it's just so common, right? Most of us at some point use substances, right? I took ibuprofen this morning, that counts, right? I had caffeine this morning, that counts, right? I'm up to 2 already and it's 9:15, right? Like, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Again, I'm looking around, I see a lot of like coffee or energy drinks or things on your desks, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but it can become problematic when it starts causing issues in your life, right? So what we see is that this has existed forever, right? In like nearly every culture throughout time, people have used substances to either have spiritual journeys, to enhance like any kind of like consciousness, to alter their consciousness, to feel better, to feel worse, right? There's so many ways that you can use these, and they can cause temporary changes in your behavior, right? So something temporary like making you a little more alert or awake or in less pain, or it can be something that's more of like a long-term pattern. And that's more what we're interested in with the disorders, maladaptive long-term patterns, where you are reliant on a substance in order to get through something, or you're using the substance in order to feel better, like consistently, it's interfering with your life in some way. So again, a ton of different substances, they all affect the brain in different ways. They tend to fall into 3 categories. So I have found a little like YouTube thing that kind of introduces how drugs affect the brain. I want to play it for you. It's only about 4.5, 5 minutes. But I think it's kind of helpful for introducing all these different substances, how they affect the brain. It was from a TED Talk, just an excerpt from it. So I'll play this for you. But so if you look at these like substances, generally fall into 3 categories. Now, this is far from perfect. They mentioned SSRIs, which don't fit neatly into any of these, right? But generally, when we talk about substances and how they affect us, we divide them into 3 groups. And again, this isn't our focus, but just to mention it quickly, depressants are going to slow you down. They depress or slow down your cognitive and behavioral processes. Okay, so they're going to kind of sedate or slow you down. The most common one being alcohol. Alcohol is a very commonly used depressant. There's a lot of sedative, hypnotic medications that fall into this group, like all of the barbiturates, the benzodiazepines, things like Xanax and Valium, and a whole bunch of others. The opioids as well, morphine, heroin, our body's natural endorphins. All of these together are things that depress or slow down your behavior and cognitive processes. Tons of them, right? And so that's kind of their main mechanism of action, if you will. And here are some like big examples. Again, not the focus, but just to put it out there. The other 2, stimulants, speed you up. Okay, so they tend to stimulate or speed up, right, the sympathetic nervous system, often creating feelings of like energy and optimism. Very addictive because what happens is you get this rush and then it goes away. And so you have to use them again in order to get the rush again. a lot of things here, very common things, right? Like caffeine is a big one. Nicotine is a very big one. Nicotine is one of the most addictive substances in existence. It takes seconds for it to take effect and work, which is why smoking is so challenging to quit. Instant like rush of energy and focus and alertness comes from using things with nicotine. Did you have a?
Yeah.
I mean, they all kind of affect similarly. So we're looking at your sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight part, like all of these. I mean, the specific like neurotransmitters and things that they target are a little bit different. But yes, in a sense, right? They're activating that to create more energy and that feeling of like being up, right? And that's what makes these again so addictive is that happens so quickly most of the time. And then when it wears off, you have to use it again in order to continue that same feeling. So cocaine, the amphetamines, ecstasy, nicotine, caffeine, all of these considered stimulants working to speed up or stimulate. And then finally, hallucinogens distort your perception. So causing you to experience things that aren't there, whether that's seeing things that aren't there, feeling things that aren't there, causing you to think differently, right? Because they distort the way that you think. So seeing things or evoking sensory images in the absence of any kind of sensory input. We have things like LSD, marijuana being one of the most common ones, right? Interesting things like I was talking with somebody last week about ketamine, right? Ketamine treatment is a new one, and that is very much a hallucinogen being used as kind of like an atypical treatment for depression for people who don't respond to more traditional like antidepressants or even stuff like TMS that we mentioned in the slides. But that would fall into this group, something that's a little more controlled, but it's being used a lot now. Yeah. Mhm.
And then they take cocaine in order to like drive back.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
it's like the,
things opposite of each
yeah,
other, right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
Right. Well, I mean, it's not that different from the idea of like Red Bull and vodka, right? Or like Monster and what Jaeger, right? Like where you're combining like an upper and down together, like they create a very dangerous effect, right? So when you do something to push your body and mind all the way up or all the way down and then all the way up, it wreaks havoc on your heart. Yeah. Especially a lot of people will have like heart issues and stuff like that. But it's not uncommon, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna depress and sedate myself and like distort everything and then use a stimulant to kind of try to bring myself back. That's a very commonly used combination of like substances, right? Whether it's in a club or otherwise.
I was sitting on that. So when I was like.
Yeah, whenever you combine categories, it gets dangerous. There's a lot of people who have died from that. And it's something that we'll get to later, but it creates what's called a synergistic effect. And there are a lot of people who have like met an untimely end from that, right? Like we'll get there. But yeah, it's very dangerous to combine things of different categories. So again, a lot of substances here, some of them legal or mixed levels of legality, like marijuana has a very like mixed level of legality. You can have certain amount of it in certain places, right? Use it for certain things, like it's not illegal in California to a degree, right? So some of these are very kind of complicated, but the idea is that most substances fall into these categories. Or they're like in their own like pharmaceutical category, but you can abuse a prescribed medication just as you can abuse one of these illegal ones that we're kind of talking about. So what we're more interested in for us, what our focus is on the disorder. Okay, so when you use a substance in a temporary way, like an occasional temporary way, we call that intoxication. Okay, so let's say you go out and you have a couple of drinks with your friends over the weekend, or you use a substance to help you sleep at night, right? A cluster of like temporary things that happen shortly after you ingest a substance is intoxication, right? And that doesn't always have to be problematic. There are tons of people who can use a substance every now and then, or even occasionally, and they never develop like addiction or like a substance use disorder. And then there are some people, all it takes is once. And the hard part is you don't always know that about yourself until it's too late. So temporary use is intoxication. Someone who's using a substance a lot, we call that a substance use disorder. In the DSM-4, they used to have two separate disorders. They had addiction and like dependence, abuse and dependence. And it was so silly because almost everybody qualified for both diagnoses. And so in the DSM-5, it's one disorder. So what we say is that you have a substance use disorder, and then we specify the substance. So we'd say substance use disorder, alcohol, substance use disorder, marijuana, whatever, or whatever substances you're using. But it combines them all together, and there are a whole host of symptoms to have with that. So I have one more video that kind of goes through them, and I'll list some of them up here on the board. Let me play that for you. Maybe. Hold on one second. Canvas is still down. And symptoms, I think that's really helpful. I try to write some of the big ones up here on the board with this disorder, right? So substance use disorder, whatever the substance or substances might be, you have to have a long-term pattern of use. So you have to have 2 or more symptoms over a year. Okay, so this is not a short-term problem, right? This is a long-term like pattern that people tend to display. So some of the things that you see with this, you use larger and larger amounts over time. So you start with like something small, and then it just kind of continues to build. You find that you're using more and more and more of it. You tend to have unsuccessful efforts to cut down or quit. You recognize maybe even that it's a problem and you want to stop it, you can't, right? You keep trying to cut down, you keep trying to cut back, but then you end up using it again, right? And so there's this unsuccessful element of trying to quit it. You spend an excessive amount of time related to the drug, whether that's thinking about it, acquiring it, using it, being under the influence of it. It takes up a lot of your time and energy. You find yourself thinking about it and craving it. Right? That is a big one, right? And there's nothing wrong with like, oh, you wake up and you like, you want that cup of coffee and you're excited to have it, but craving it, strong urge to use it, it comes up for you all the time in your head. It starts to get to a point where you can't fulfill your obligations. You're so hungover in the morning that you can't make it to class, okay? Because you are so worn out because you had too much last night, right? Or you're missing work because of it, or like you're running into problems. It gets you in dangerous and hazardous situations. Maybe you're driving under the influence and you get pulled over. Like often legal problems, danger, hazardous like situations tend to come from it. Whether that's just your physical health or actually something like more legal and so on. You develop tolerance and withdrawal, right? And this is something that's really interesting. A lot of us go through these like things at some point. Again, you have to have multiple symptoms over a year. It has to be affecting your life, right? So all of those things have to be true. But tolerance is when a drug doesn't do the same thing that it used to anymore, right? So again, I shared with you, I had a cup of coffee this morning, right? Like I have a cup of coffee most mornings. When I was in college, I worked at Starbucks, and it was one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. I loved it. I loved it so much, actually. It's probably one of my favorites still, like other than this one, because it was fun. And I had like 1,000% access to free coffee all the time, right? When I first interviewed to work at Starbucks, they asked me what I liked about coffee. And I thought coffee was disgusting. I hadn't discovered caramel syrup and caramel drizzle yet in my life. So I thought coffee was disgusting. So I gave them this line of like, well, it's like the great social facilitator, and people like get together and meet over coffee and fall in love over coffee. I got hired, right? Like it was a good line, right? But I remember in the first few weeks, I had to try all the coffees, right? So I could describe them to customers. Right, so they would line up all the like drip coffee, and I would have to try it, and I'd be like, it tastes like crap, it tastes like really bad crap, it tastes awful, this one tastes like somebody like ruined this like badly, like oh, like I didn't like any of them. But just this much coffee, the tiny little sample cup, and I was like buzzed out of my mind. Like I was like, what do you want me to clean? I'll go clean everything. Like I'll work till midnight, like whatever. Like I have never had so much energy because I just didn't grow up drinking coffee. Like it wasn't part of my family dynamic. So this much coffee, I remember they used to do espresso shot competitions at my store, right? And in the beginning, I drank one and I threw up. Like, because I had no tolerance. By the time I left 2 years later, I could drink 6, right? Which would probably kill me now. But like, that's okay. At the time, I was like, I could do another one maybe. Like, my stomach would hurt, but that's tolerance, right? And I saw it in my customers all the time. You have the person come through, they get a tall, and then it was a grande, and then it was a venti, and then it was a triple venti, and then a quad venti. This was before we had the 30 ounce, right? Like, so it would just go up and up and up, or they start coming back a second time during the day. And I started to feel like a drug pusher. It'd be like, here's your fix, right? Like, just constantly, right? And like, you see so much of it. And then when I quit Starbucks and it was no longer free, right? Withdrawal, right? Came next because I couldn't afford it anymore. It was expensive now. I had to pay for the coffee. And you see that with something as simple and benign and common as caffeine, right? Like, if you have a cup of coffee every morning, you will likely develop tolerance to the point where you need a little bit more, right? And so what I often do is on the weekend, I don't drink coffee. And then by Monday, I'm like, oh, it works again, right? Like, and so that's kind of like the cycle that I've figured out to keep it under control. But this happens with anything. One cigarette used to wake you up and make you alert and ready to go. Now you need 2, or you need another one after a certain amount of time. One gummy or one like joint used to help you fall asleep. And now you need 2 or you need more, right? Like it gets more and more and more. And if you don't use it, you feel lousy. Yeah.
My family is really, like, one thing that's really popular is, using, I think, a very small amount of coffee as like a sleep aid.
Sure.
So,
As a sleep aid?
yeah, so coffee, one milk,
Okay.
like tiny little
Sure.
bit of sugar, and then a lot of parents get a little bit of that, like.
Coffee.
Yeah,
Huh.
so, that being said, throughout most of my life, I've had like an insane high tolerance. to
Sure.
caffeine. And then last semester, I realized once I kind of graduated from coffee to just like energy drinks throughout the entirety of the day,
Yeah.
it was interesting because I could feel the difference between the caffeine from like natural sources like coffee or tea, and the difference between like synthetic caffeine from like
Yeah.
energy drinks. And what was really interesting was like I would have like, I think maybe 2 semesters ago, I was averaging like 450 to 600 milligrams of caffeine a day, just while I was on campus, because I was on campus from 8 in the morning to 7 p.m. And I remember I was just like I'd be getting ready to go into my chemistry class or like my biology class, and like I couldn't like stay awake. I like it's been like less than an hour since I had the last like 40 milligrams drink or something like that. And I remember stopping for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then all I did was just take like 1 shot of espresso
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
And we're
And it felt so like it was weird. Like I started to feel how I felt when I was younger, when I would just have like a small amount of coffee.
yeah, that's tolerance, right?
Yeah.
You have it every day that much, it stops having the same effect.
Yeah.
Take a break from it, all of a sudden a little bit, like they work a lot better. It's so interesting that you said to help you sleep. So caffeine's a stimulant.
Yeah.
But it's really, so for me, like, and everybody's different, but the compliments to substances, right? If I drink any caffeine after like 2, I'm not sleeping tonight. Like, there's no way. Like, I will lay there in bed tonight, like I can't sleep. Like, even like a little bit of coffee, like after 2, my partner can literally drink a cup of coffee in bed at 10 p.m. and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And like, I'll glare at her and he'll be like, that's not fair. Like, I want a warm cup of coffee, but I'd be up all night and probably tomorrow night too, right? So everybody has like a different tolerance. And interestingly, sometimes substances can be kind of diagnostic. Oftentimes people who have a sedative effect to things like caffeine struggle with things like ADHD. And so the fact that caffeine actually stimulates them to calm them down, it's almost diagnostic that way.
In my case, that
Yeah. Yeah, we would say.
One of my mom's favorite, like, icon
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, I always told them, or I think I told someone else that, said, why do they do that? Like, because it's like, like, before bed treat.
Yeah, it's like a treat, yeah. Mhm.
But it is interesting different people's tolerance.
Yeah.
my grandma will have that, or have a simple, it's too much for her, my grandpa will have like 3 of them, and
Totally fine.
go to sleep
Yeah.
earlier than her.
Everybody's so different. That's what makes substances so unpredictable, is you don't always know what your tolerance and ability to tolerate them is until you use them, right? And sometimes at that point, it's even too late. So, what we'll do next time, we'll pick up with, there's one more. So substance use disorder is when you have problems because you use the disorder, or use the substance, sorry. You have a disorder because you're using the substance. You can also have what's called a substance-induced disorder, and they're kind of a tricky distinguishing between the two. So we'll pick up there when I see you on Wednesday. Don't forget about the outline and source. Hopefully Canvas will be up again later, but I'll see you all on Wednesday. But
Question about, these are all synthetic.
what's that?
Disorders, I mean, synthetic cause.